All right, all right, all right. Next topic of discussion: unconscious creation. Like I said, see, is beliefs. So I previously discussed what we like to call the 5 drivers of your life. The beliefs you have that you were programmed between the ages of 0 and 7 are what dictate the quality of your thoughts, which is the catalyst to your emotion, which then leads to an action or inaction, which leads to a result, and the result always reinforces the belief. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today, we are going to talk about beliefs. The first thing. Now, I'm just going to summarize a little bit what we talked about previously, and that is that one can figure out what beliefs. Well, that's really interesting. I'm seeing a toilet, a literal toilet, the white porcelain thing you have in your bathroom, in the middle of the fields, on the side of the highway. That was an interesting sight. Look up Florida. So, one can discover one's belief that one has that is ingrained somewhere subconsciously based off of the thoughts they are having. That kind of is, if you are, I don't want to say advanced or intermediate phase. If you were like me, who doesn't know that we're having subconscious 60,000 thoughts a day, and that was news to you, you thought you were being conscious of all your thoughts. You didn't realize there was a program running behind the scenes that's habitual, that you're not even conscious of, you're not even aware of. That's okay. That's the same place a lot of us start. I started it, most of us start. So I started from my feelings. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having a very strong reaction to X. And I was told that because I'm having this reaction, I'm having this emotion, I must be having some thoughts that are causing this emotion. So I started training myself to be more conscious, to be more aware of these thoughts. What thoughts am I having? Why am I having this emotional experience? What thoughts are causing this emotion, And it takes some time to kind of work that muscle of understanding or hearing and seeing what thoughts you're having. And once you start picking up at the thoughts, you're like, sometimes you're like, I cannot believe I had that thought. You have sometimes the thought and, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yep, this is happening. This is all right. Everything's fine. It's a conundrum on the highway here. Thoughts. You take a look at the thoughts you have that are causing you the emotion that you are having. God, train the muscle a little bit. Once you start picking up at the thoughts, there's a lot of reactions personally that I've had to my own thoughts. I'm like, wow, did I really just think that? Is that really what's going on subconsciously? That was a reaction to my thoughts. Another one was, I don't think that way. Like, I don't believe that. That's very silly. Wait, I had that thought? My brain had that thought? I think that thought is highly silly, and I don't think I would have that kind of thought. Yet I did. So, these thoughts, however silly, however illogical, whatever these thoughts are, they are stemming from a belief. Something that we subconsciously believe about something. And so that's the next step. Once you become aware of your thought patterns, you get to question, why did I have that thought? How did I get to the point that that is a thought? That's part of my thought pattern. That's part of my thinking. Like, rationally, I'm like, that makes no sense. Emotionally, that hits home and has an effect. So where did this thought come from? What do I believe subconsciously to get me to that thinking, right? And with enough of this introspection or with some coaching, you find out that the thought you have is something like, I can't trust people, or I have to do everything myself, or I don't deserve this, I'm not worthy. These are very common, hear that from me, very common beliefs. Even though we don't use these kinds of words, these kinds of sentences in our American culture, in our society, we wouldn't really admit to that, right? Like, oh, I have problems with my self-worth. We don't talk like that. But that's the reality, that we have a limiting belief about ourselves, about existence, about life, about people, that makes us think things that we may agree with, we may not agree with, that actually perpetuates the thought, the emotion, the reaction that we have. All of this reinforces the belief over and over again. And we continue to believe that we are not worthy enough because the same shit keeps happening. Believe it or not, the same shit keeps happening because we believe that's what we deserve. We believe that's how it's supposed to be because we were taught between the ages of 0 and 7, that's how it is, right? And it's crazy how we are just living a program instilled in us before we could walk when we were youth, when we had no say what was being programmed into us. And so now, oh my God, Chuck E. Cheese's, that exists? Wonderful. That place was great. Anyway, so we are lucky enough to be human beings, okay, that can learn to actually live consciously. And this is what I'm doing this whole thing for, is teaching you guys how to live consciously and create what you want versus subconsciously running a program and not necessarily agreeing with the program. So we're reprogramming our minds here. What we do is once we figure out what's one of those beliefs that is limiting our existence, we can work with that. Because here is a 2mm distinction that I don't think any of us really know. That beliefs are decisions. That's simple. At one point in our life, we decided to believe something. We decided that something was true, and we've been rolling with it. Isn't that fascinating? For example, your mother tells you something when you're a child. Do you believe it? You, at that age, decided that that was true because your mother was saying it and it must be true. We didn't fact check in those days. We just took what we observed, what we heard, what we were taught as factual. So we believed something, right? And throughout our lives, that belief got reinforced and we got more evidence as to why that belief is true. However, somebody else could have got taught something very different from their family that is the opposite belief of your belief. That happens all the time. A good example for this for me was COVID. My family believes that the reality of COVID was very different than what was being broadcasted and what was taking place around us. I had a friend who came up to my house and she had very different beliefs. And it was interesting because we were getting the same stimuli. We both went to the same school, got the same information, yet we had such drastic opinions, emotions around COVID that actually ruined our friendship because neither of one of us were willing to budge on our belief because we decided it was true for us and we were going with it. So, because beliefs are decisions, we could simply make a new decision. We do this by using a tool called the decision matrix, which starts off on the left-hand side with the old limiting belief. Now, we have tons of evidence as to why the old limiting belief is true, because we've been living in that program, and we can go all day on why this belief is true. However, we do recognize that this belief does not serve us. It's not letting us live a limitless life. That this belief is hindering us in some area of our life, and we want to change it. So we take a look at this limiting belief, and we say, well, if I'm saying that this belief is not true, what else could be true? Often it is the opposite of that belief. Now, when it comes to something as foundational as somebody's self-worth, saying the old decision is I'm not worthy, changing it to I am worthy as a new decision might feel inorganic. And that's okay, because it's a decision, or it is a thought pattern or a thought that you have not had before. And it is so contrary to the program that you've been running for so many years that it's going to feel awkward to think that, to believe that it's easier to just think I'm not worthy and follow that habitual thought train. It is harder to put in the work of the new decision and saying, no, I am worthy. I have worth. So the way we make it easier for ourselves is we find evidence of the new belief. So our new belief is I am worthy. When we take a look as to, well, how do I know this is true? What evidence do I have that I am worthy? Well, my mother carried me in her belly for 9 months. That must be worth something. My parents dedicated their entire 18 years on my development, ensuring I had the best upbringing I possibly could. That must be worth something. This is the evidence we work on, we find, we come up with to solidify this new belief. So in the left-hand side, we have the limiting belief. In the middle, we have the new decision, which is often the reciprocal of the old belief. And then, in order to solidify the new belief, in order for it to be tangible, in order for us to start that neural pathway, building that new neural pathway of thinking, we do really have to put in the work in two regards. One, creating the evidence and continuing to add to the evidence. You know, something happens to you and you write it down. This is why I'm worthy. My boss thinks I'm great. Like I mentioned previously, we don't celebrate our wins as much as we give ourselves hell for our mistakes. So this is when you celebrate the wins, when you recognize the goods. And you use that to solidify your new belief. So that's one place where there is work. If you want to change your life, you got to put in work there. Another place we put in work is application to real life. So I don't know if you guys had this experience, but I sure as hell did. You go to school, you learn something, then you go out into the real world and realize what you learned is not actually as perfectly applicable in the real world as it was in the classroom. In the classroom, you understood it perfect, everything makes sense, got it, done. You go to the real world, you try to implement it, and you're like, oh, this is very different. Oh my goodness, right? So the second place of doing the work is in the neurosculpting. By this, I mean, you're going to have to catch yourself. The limiting belief on the left-hand side is so habitual and so programmed in you that you are not even aware that you are having that thought pattern. You're going into that spiral of thinking. It's habitualized. You've had it so many times that your body now does it better than if you were conscious and doing it. So your body's like, I got it. Let me do it. Let me have the same thought pattern that I've had for the past 20 years. No problem. I will get you to the same emotions that you're so accustomed to having of grief or anxiety or sadness, depression. No problem. I got you. I know this is how you want to feel. So let me just do it for you automatically. No problem. That's what our brain does for us. And so the application in real life is catching a hidden conversation, a subconscious conversation, a habitual conversation that consciously we don't even know is happening. We have to train our brain to realize we're having this conversation, to realize we're having this negative spiral that is leading to an emotion, to emotions that we don't necessarily want. And so we have to catch the emotion, catch the thoughts behind it, and catch when it's starting to happen again. Like, oh, here it comes. At first I would catch it at the emotional phase and be like, I don't want to have this emotion, and I'll cut it there. But with more practice, you could cut it earlier in the process, earlier in the spiral. You could catch it at the thought phase. You could realize you're starting the same thought pattern that you're trying to get away from, right? It's usually after you get triggered. So you have an experience, you start thinking a certain type of way, which is the habitual thinking that you've had for the past 20 years. And you could catch it. You get to the point where you catch it and you say, like, hey, oh, I don't want to have the same thought pattern that's going to lead me to the same emotion that I don't like, that's going to lead me to react in a way that I don't like, that's going to lead to a result that I don't like, to reinforce a belief that is hindering my life. You can make that decision. And you have made that decision. You made a new decision. Like, instead, I want to believe this. And so this is the second place to do the work, is implementation in real life, which is recognizing you're having that thought pattern and stop that thought pattern. Easier said than done, correct? As I mentioned in one of my audios, stopping the thought pattern at the beginning of the thought pattern is easier than when you are 20 minutes into the thought pattern, because by then you have accumulated emotion, right? And you've probably already reacted. So you train yourself and you become better and better at catching the conversation and stopping the conversation. Ideally, this is when you affirm to yourself your new belief that you've already made and say, no, we're not doing that today. We chose to believe this now, and we're going to believe this because I know it's true, because I have this piece of evidence for it, this piece of evidence for it, and this piece of evidence for it. And that is when your brain starts developing new neural pathways. It is solidifying that new neural pathway, the synapses that connect for you to think how you're thinking, and starting to deprogram the one that you habitually do. So we have to consciously, this is why I call it conscious creation, we have to consciously stop the unconscious conversation and implement consciously the conversation that we do want to have in our head. Now, for those of you that this work is new, take it easy. Take a deep breath. Relax. This might be a lot of information. It was a lot of information for me when I first started. Relax. Everything's going to fall into place. You are just putting your toes in the water right now. Nobody's asking you to dive head first. Take it easy. However this comes to you, trust it. I'm not saying to sit here with a pen and paper and take notes of what I'm saying. I'm saying be open to it. Observe it in your life. And then if you want to make a change in your life, implement these strategies. That's all I'm saying. Take it easy on yourself. We're humans. We are all humans. We all do this. And my goal is to wake us up, hopefully a very good portion of us, to be more conscious and create from a conscious place so that we can be happier. We can limit ourselves less. But take it easy, you know? All right, take care.